When I was younger, what I heard was evangelism was kind of the bridging the gap between the evil, sinful people out in the world and the holy Christian people in church. And you went out and just stopped people on the street and asked them if they died in that day, if they would be going to heaven or not. And if not, we would try to convert them then. And so that was my full understanding of evangelism up to that point.
I thought evangelists were Billy Graham or door knockers, and that was not me. And I mean, if you put me on a spiritual gifts test, I am not going to score high on evangelism. But there's a part of my heart that is awake and alive to people that don't know who Jesus Christ is.
I had a real strong desire for all the people that were friends and family of mine that were in the same boat that I was before, that we just missed the whole grace concept. And I wanted to be able to share that with people. And I had a very strong passion for it, and my personality type was such to confront them with it. And I found myself pushing them away.
We'd have to go knock on doors and talk to people, and we had a certain outline that we were supposed to follow, certain things we were supposed to say, questions we were supposed to ask, scriptures we were supposed to use. And I can remember getting out of the car, walking up to the door, and I would literally be praying that nobody would be home because I didn't want to do that to them.
When I first put my trust in Christ, 1 week later I had my first evangelism experience. Well, they paired me up with a lady, and she said, let's go. I mean, she commanded me. And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm going right with you. We walked to this apartment unit, and the first door she came to, she knocked on the door, boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, a guy opened the door, and she asked this guy, do you know Jesus? And the guy looked at this lady with a look I've never seen before, and he slammed the door on her. And I just went berserk. I was like, what in the world was that? Well, she went to the next door, and she knocked on the next door, and she said, now it's your turn. And I looked at her. I said, this is evangelism.
I got in a small group with a guy who became a very good friend of mine, and he just declared one Sunday that we were all going to go to the Becoming a Contagious Christian course. The course would help me understand that God has put me in circles with certain people and those people in my circle for a very specific reason.
When I took the course, it sort of broke down all those molds that I thought I had to fit into, where I had only learned one style of evangelism, and it didn't fit me real well. I got to see in the Bible that the gospel was shared so many different ways by people, and that there was a style that was right for me.
After the course, I was able to better understand where people were at by asking them questions and figure out, just where their heart was, what they thought about God. Gave us a basis to begin with instead of hitting them over the head with the gospel.
And it's in simple things and simple places, like the checkout line. Like sitting beside a parent at a ball game who's had a really bad week. And you're not doing anything other than learning to look through a new lens that says, maybe I can just enter into conversations that are going to make a difference to people. Maybe I can just love people in a new way. And it's something everybody can do.
Pushing people to Christ never worked. But drawing them to Christ does work. And that's what I learned.
Because of the influence that this course had on my life, I wanted to teach it at my church. So one of the early experiences that I had with it, a young woman came up to me in the course on one of the breaks, and she said, Nancy, I've never shared the gospel in my life, and my dad's dying. What do I do? I just grinned at her and said, when you walk out that door this afternoon, you're going to know how to share the gospel with your dad. Saw her a couple of months later in the foyer of the church, and I'd heard her daddy had died, and I asked her how things went. She said, just 2 weeks after the course, she said, I had 10 minutes alone with my dad, and I shared with him the gospel. And he prayed to receive Christ, and she said, he changed. And I said, well, so tell me about the funeral. How was it different? She said, it made all the difference in the world. And I said, why? She said, because I knew I'd see him in heaven again. And I thought, that's the power of just everyday Christians learning simple ways, natural ways, to be who they are and share their faith with people.
I just believe now that just having authentic relationship and asking questions and walking with somebody will slowly draw them towards God as God is alive in you.
God just stirred up a new fire. He revived my heart through this process. And even now, no matter where I go, I see people differently.
Through the course, individual faces, individual hearts just start, jumping out at you. And you're thinking, I want that person to know what I know.